Alright, so this has been a fun video to try to make. Because of that, one of my neighbors is outside pounding wood for some reason, because of course this whole quarantine thing has got everybody wanting to get stuff done just to pass the time. It really sucks. But there's really nothing I can do about it. I need to record the video, and I need to do it now. I'm going to do my best to talk when it's not happening, or if I can't talk when it's not happening, then talk over it happening, so that it's not much of a bother for you guys. I promise, as bothered as you are by it, I'm bothered by it significantly more. That said, we are moving forward with Transformers Prime today. We're still on the kind of mid-season finale-ish section of Season 2, where both the Autobots and the Decepticons are rushing to find 4 ancient Cybertronian relics with vast technological power. For those who don't remember, and I wouldn't blame you because it's been a while since my last Transformers review, the previous relic found was an intangibility device, which allows a Transformer, or I would imagine probably non-Transformers as well, to allow people and objects to pass through them harmlessly. And just like the last episode made it clear that these various episodes during which the characters pursue the relics are going to overlap, this episode treats this entire little mini arc as exactly what it is, a serialized mini arc. There's a brief recap of what happened in the previous episode, and then we jump right to the nemesis, with Megatron deciding to send Dreadwing, his current second-in-command, along with another detachment of Decepticon drones to Antarctica, where the next artifact is slated to be found. And also in keeping with that episode, there's a lot of overlap between our coverage of the various factions. We jump to Starscream, who's still on the Decepticon transport, the Harbinger, I think it was called, and he's kind of gotten acquainted with the tech there. He's in the process of trying to reinstall his TCOG using the one that he took from his clone, but he hasn't done that yet, and he actually stops when he sees the scanners pick up 4 Decepticon detachments leaving at the same time, getting him interested in what's going on. He just happens to use a remote control access to the ground bridge to bridge himself also to Antarctica. And back at the Autobot base, Optimus is gearing up to go there as well on his own, because, put frankly, he doesn't need anybody to partner up with. He's Optimus Prime. But we get a brief conversation between him and Ratchet, and it is very brief, but I like it a lot, because he wants Ratchet to go with somebody on his mission, and the only person left is Wheeljack. And Ratchet doesn't really like Wheeljack because he's kind of like Ratchet was when he was taking that Synthan. Just like all the time, right? But not only is it nice to get a mention of Wheeljack, a reminder that he is out there and that the Autobots do intend to call on him if they need him, I like the conversation between Optimus and Ratchet. Because anyone else, Optimus would just order them to do it, and they do it. But Ratchet not only protests and voices his opinion, but Optimus hears him out and then voices a rebuttal. You just really get the sense from this conversation that these two characters know each other well and respect each other a lot. Sounds like they finally stopped with that pounding noise, so I'm very excited about that. Moving on, though. From there, Optimus bridges to Antarctica. The temperature's not quite cold enough right now to cause him or any of the other Cybertronians there to start shutting down, which is nice. But in the meantime, Starscream has already gotten there. He's already bumped into Dreadwing. He's tried to weasel his way back in the Decepticon ranks, or at the very least, weasel his way out of becoming Dreadwing's captive, but that doesn't work. He's cuffed, and he's being not drug along behind them, but more or less. And Optimus and Dreadwing have a fight, and Starscream in the background of this fight is the funniest frickin' thing. He's just... Throughout the first, 2/3 of this episode, he's literally just there in the background, trying to be his usual manipulative self, and literally no one buys it anymore at this point. It's absolutely hilarious. But then at the same time, while this is happening and being very amusing at the same time, you get more of the dynamic between Optimus and Dreadwing. These are two characters who, despite their differing ideologies, really respect each other. And I'm glad that they not only remind us of that in the recap at the beginning of the episode, but revisited that here. Dreadwing is a very interesting character. He has been since he came into the show, and he remains such now. It really is a shame what ends up happening to him, because I really would have liked to have seen this character, even just in ancillary media or something, become a true Autobot, or at the very least become an ally to Optimus specifically. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, they have a fight, and Dreadwing tries to leverage the fact that his team outnumbers Optimus to get Optimus to surrender. It doesn't work, obviously, because this is Optimus we're talking about. But whether it's because Optimus does respect Dreadwing so much and so isn't going as hard as he could be, or it's just because Dreadwing is that good, or else he's willing to go further than Optimus is in general, they're actually fairly equal in terms of strength. And so Optimus resorts to blasting down a glacier wall and burying Dreadwing rather than fighting him directly. And then Starscream helps Optimus fend off an attack from, I think it was like the final Viacon. It doesn't matter, and I'm not going to go revisit the episode to check. I'm fairly certain it was just the final Viacon, though. So that he can try to get into Optimus's good graces now and claim that he was working against the Decepticons for the Autobots' benefit the entire time. And that he knows where the relic is, which I guess he kind of technically does. So he ends up helping Optimus by kind of halfway leading him there. But you never really get the sense that, first of all, Optimus would have actually needed his help during the fight. And second of all, that Optimus couldn't have found the relic himself, because it ends up being at a human research facility on Antarctica. They've found it and moved it there. Class, stop. No. Don't bark. Don't do it. Don't do it. Put your ear down. You're very cute. Go to sleep. No. Somebody's talking outside. Class is very jumpy. Lay down. Whatever, it's fine. Anyway. So, unfortunately, Dreadwing gets out of the ice, and he and Optimus start fighting again, and this is when the Optimus and Dreadwing conflict gets moved to the background of the episode, and we start to focus on Starscream again, which is very cool. Putting Starscream in the background up to this point, making it seem like he was just there for the lulz, for the audience, and then switching the script, flipping the script so suddenly was a brilliant move, because I wasn't taking him seriously at that point. It seemed like he had made a really stupid choice, not only not installing his TCOG yet, before going to bump into a bunch of Decepticons, but then going to bump into a bunch of Decepticons, seemingly on purpose. But it turns out that his bumbling actually pays off here. While Optimus and Dreadwing are distracted by the renewal of their fight, he's able to get to the relic, which is something called the Apex Armor. I'm not sure if this comes from the greater lore of Transformers or not, but it's an object that you kind of attach to your chest area, and then it surrounds you in practically invulnerable armor. And now, suddenly, Starscream is a major threat. Though, to be fair, he would have to actually open up the armor and return it to its unopened state. Inactive is the word I was looking for. Inactive state in order to transform and fly away, which is not something he can do anyway, but that's beside the point. He also seemingly can't fire weapons through it. But despite the fact that it does limit his capabilities in those ways, it is powerful enough that neither Optimus nor Dreadwing can make a dent in it. In fact, this scene right here, where Optimus goes to punch the Apex Armor with Starscream in it, obviously, and Starscream catches his punch effortlessly, and you can see genuine fear and worry on Optimus's face, shook me just a little bit, because I have seen mostly this entire show. I do know that Optimus doesn't get killed by Starscream here, but still, you don't see Optimus Prime this worried very often. And so, of course, Optimus and Dreadwing team up, and they end up using tactics to outmaneuver Starscream and trap him in the ocean. Because even if that doesn't kill him, or even disable him, at the very least he's trapped down there for a while in the slow, heavy Apex armor. Because if he takes it off, he will shut down. It's cold enough down there that he'll shut down. So they have, at the very least, removed him from the equation temporarily. And without the relic for them to fight over anymore, they have no reason to fight, and so they go their separate ways. Again, showing that mutual respect between the characters. And I love this as a resolution because they work so well together. They decide to work together, and just from that point forward, they feel like a team. And since we've already seen that they're roughly equivalent in terms of their skill and power, it feels like a team of two Optimus Primes working together. It was very cool. I enjoyed it a lot. This episode is, much like the last one, basically, it's an episode. It's an episode of this short and mostly episodic arc. We do see a little bit more of what Fowler was up to back in the episode previous to this one. He actually calls in and gets the base cleared out so that it's safe for the Cybertronians to get inside, which I thought was cool. Is a nice way of tying the episodes together. But again, this feels very disjointed from the previous episode. It feels like its own standalone thing, but that's not in any way a bad thing. In fact, I think it does a very good job of being its own standalone thing while still feeling like part of a greater narrative. And the action in this is not the best that the show has ever done, but it's solid. At the very least, the environments are kind of boring, being all icy and white and gray and stuff, but the action itself is fun, and the character work here is really good. Starscream's story gets furthered, which is something I always like to see. You guys know how much I love this version of Starscream. But the dynamic between Optimus and Dreadwing getting built upon is something that I could watch an entire show where this is the main focus. Like, let's say there's a hypothetical Prime-esque show where Dreadwing is just the leader of the Decepticons. He's fairly reasonable. Klaus, lay down, buddy. Come on. He's fairly reasonable. He and Optimus respect each other a lot. And he's not as unreasonable as Megatron can be. And as focused as Megatron can be. And as evil as Megatron can be. I'd love to see that kind of dynamic between Optimus and whoever his main villain rival is, you know? And despite the fact that even this show has kind of tried to set Megatron up as that kind of character, someone who did have a reasonable ideology at one point, the two characters never reach that point throughout the course of this show, and that kind of bums me out. But at least Dreadwing is here to be that to this Optimus, if that makes sense. As per usual, though, I'd like to know what you guys think of the Transformers Prime episode, Triangulation, I think is what it was called. Did I even mention that? I don't know, it doesn't matter. What did you guys think of the Transformers Prime episode, Triangulation, if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.